Everybody, this is Fabi from The Next Big Rush. Friday afternoon, super messy desk. This next segment of the chat between Nick the Mine guy, Jay, and myself is super cool because this is about Northern Shield resources, but it's pre-results. So whenever we were having this chat, no results had come out of Huckleberry or anything like that. So pay attention, think about the stuff that we say, but do realize that this was before it crashed well into the double digits. I think it crashed like 50% in a day or something like that. I am down right now 62 to 65% on this one bet. And yeah, it fell too quickly for me to realize. So I was just like, you know what the heck? Let's wait for the next results and see what happens. Two things are going to happen. It's either really going to hit with the next few results and further drilling they have to do, and then we're going to wish that we bought more at these uber low prices, or this is really not going to pan out the way that we wanted to, and we were going to wish that we had never bought it in the first place. So either way, we're going to be a little bit bitter about this, I see, eventually, but here it is. Enjoy. Jay, do you
Yeah.
have an opinion?
I was just gonna say Northern Shield is a lot of people's retirement plan.
I made a small bet in that too, but it's really an all or nothing situation.
Yep.
I think
I got a small bet too. Everyone talks about it. You know, it's a lottery ticket. It's the best lottery ticket you'll ever buy. There you go.
Yeah, I've got a position there too, so I guess we're all in. The whole result that Sequoia to deliver. I think everybody's on that 24/7. Basically, it's so funny. Every moment like that I'm on the site, there's like 50 new refresh updates on Northern Shield. So just putting that out there. I think I'll answer this kind of segregating my response. So trying to split it up between early stage exploration and development stage. Because Fabi, your question was kind of the size of the deposit or the resource that you're looking for. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is this great quote from Ross Beatty, which basically says anything that can go wrong, with a small mine can go wrong with a big mine, and vice versa. So the problem with the small mine is you don't have the the size to kind of bail you out if you run into big issues along the way. So all things being equal, you want to go with the bigger deposit, because it's in terms of execution risks, they're going to be the same. It's mine development. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. It doesn't matter how big the deposit is. So, you're more protected and hedged if you go with, this massive multi-million ounce deposit, because, if something goes wrong, it's probably going to be able to, the issues will probably get resolved because there's so much at stake. The resource is so huge. The annual production generates so much cash flow and revenue. They're going to work it out, whether they have to go to, do a capital raise or, restructure debt financing or whatever they need to do to get funds needed to put the mine in production. It's probably going to happen with a really massive deposit. So, all things being equal, you want to go with size. For me personally, if I'm just looking again, this is just development stage, so it's more mature companies that have initial resources. They're working towards PEAs or feasibility studies. Typically, I'm like you, Fabia. I want at least 1 million ounces, I guess, total resource. Ideally, to actually split that up even more, it'd be like at a minimum 100,000 ounces per year production. Of course, with good economics, surrounding it. I mean, ideally, it's a project that could work at $1,000 ounce gold.
Going back to Northern Shield, because I didn't notice we're all in it. I knew Jay was in on it because I saw a couple of his comments on CEO.ca. I didn't know Nick had a position in there too. Is there one single reason? I mean, what was the one thing that you saw that made you go, okay, I have to at least try this, maybe just a small position or a bigger position, it doesn't matter. But what was the one thing that kind of pushed you over the edge to say, okay, I think there might be something there?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because I'll be honest. Despite seeing all the activity, for me, this is more of an unusual play. I'm on record always trying to find stuff that no one else has found. Obviously, this is one of the top ones. I felt like I needed to have a position, mostly because I didn't want to be that sad person that knew this existed, and if they hit, to actually completely miss out on it. So honestly, that's what it comes down to. Like, some of these things are a little irrational, but I felt like the risk reward was worth it. And full disclosure, I think I got in 17.5 cents. So it's not like I've made any money. It's actually trading, right around there. And I wasn't planning on selling anything. I have a small position, but I do feel like there's, from what I've read, and without fully understanding the geology, this is such a unique play. I felt like it would totally have legs, like Voisey's Bay, Diamond Fields, if it hits. I think all that stuff's presented, but I actually, in some ways, don't want to look at it deeper, because I don't want to get sucked into the vortex and start doubling down, throwing money at it. So that's a personal choice, but I do have a few plays like this where I don't really talk about them, but I will get into more some of those mainstream mining plays, because honestly I don't want to miss out and be the one dummy that doesn't own any when they hit.
You don't want that to turn into your personal Bitcoin story, right?
Yeah. That's right.
I want to be invited to the retirement party.
There's no way any of us is retiring after this cycle. No way.
I'll be honest, and just to keep it straight up. I mean, yeah, just like Nick said, I mean, with Northern Shield, I didn't really have a good rhyme or reason to get into it. It was, I'm okay with allocating a portion of my portfolio to more of these, quote unquote lottery tickets, and alongside Alicanto Minerals, I'd say those are probably the really early stage stuff in my portfolio that's probably the most unproven. But I don't even remember what I sold to get the capital for it, but it was all in good fun, if you will. Like just you kind of read the forums, and with the research and listening to the company presentations, you could see the potential there. I mean, it is, in a way, it feels like a really very technical science project. It's putting all this theory into practice, and my background is engineering, just to put it out there, and I've sat through so many these really theoretical discussions, and then later we try to implement it in the lab, and it's like this doesn't work at all. I don't even know what you're talking about. Like sometimes reality is kind of twisted that way, right? Where it seems so perfect in theory, but to put it into practice, to make it actually happen is a lot more complicated. So I'm not going to pretend that I understand the whole geology and like how these nickel, copper, PG systems work, but I was willing to take a gamble on it. I put I guess a decent amount of capital where if it doesn't work out and it goes bust, I'm okay with that. I can take the hit in my portfolio, but if it does work out, then I don't want to be that sad person who's left out. I want to be high five everybody in the room and be like, I knew this was gonna happen. I knew they were gonna hit. Like
that would look really smart.
Yeah, I want to say that I got in on the next Voisey's Bay.
It makes for a good story. Right. For sure, yeah. I had a lot of that too, because everybody was so keen on it, and then I always look at the charts to see is this a good entry point. So I think I got in at about 14.5 to 15 cents, which is okay. I'm not making or losing any money at this point, which I consider it to be a fairly good position. I am very jealous of the people who got in at 3 cents, for sure. But the one thing that really made me think, this is interesting, was actually something about the geology of the place itself. And I'll be the first one to say, hey, I know nothing about geology, right? I mean, we learn so much by studying all these companies. And then we realize, when we actually see geologists talking to each other, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even have a clue of what you're talking about. And so you put yourself in your well-deserved spot of newbie. But there's one thing in particular, and I want to make sure that, like, this is not us trying to get other people to buy Northern Shield. We have zero idea whether it's going up or down.
Yeah,
We don't know
yeah,
if
yeah.
there's anything there.
No
There
idea.
could be literally nothing there. But what I found really interesting was the studies that they did that showed the sediments, right? And when it shows the sediments, you see the concentration of really interesting material, and how that concentration is just really, 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 really large, especially for that area. And you see all the little dots, which to us are really just dots on a screen, right? Accumulating. It
Yeah.
kind of makes you think, like, there's
More than that.
something there, right? I mean, it could be something that is worth nothing, but there must be some sort of strange anomaly there. And that was what really did it for me, because, there are a few companies that everybody loves and everybody wants to get in on. But when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's going to be, at the first few drills, or if it's going to be, on a different sort of hill that they're looking for. But somewhere in here, there's something going on. So I'm interested. I'm curious. Let's make a bet on it.
Yeah, one thing that sold me was they have 4 targets, so even if they don't hit, they have the JV with Huckleberry, and the first set of results. I mean, I wouldn't say they were bad, but the market maybe expected more. Like a home run off the bat. So, that didn't happen. The shares actually got smashed to like 13 cents, or maybe even lower than that for a week or so. And then, everybody right now is most keen on Sequoia, and that's the one they're drilling right now. But, they've got like 2 additional targets outside of that. So I figured you're getting 4 lottery tickets for the price of 1. So, sure, it's,
worth a shot.
The offer was better.
On that point, I'll kind of twist it around a little bit. I do think there's more to the Northern Shield story than just these drill results coming, but this absolutely fits more into a binary type play. What concerns me about this one is, like, even if they hit something, I mean, or like that could be there, like we're all thinking, they're very likely to get something that immediately shows this is a huge system and it might double or triple. But there's definitely a lot of risk here because of the hype around it. Like, I could see them, finding something, but because they don't instantly know it's huge, it could drop down, because there's a lot of hyped up speculators in this one. And so that's something to keep in mind. And I have to use a personal example as like a contrast. I mean, I've had a lot of difficulty, kind of getting people interested in Mandoro Capital, which is in Serbia and Bulgaria. But in a way, I'm kind of happy that they didn't, based on the results. I mean, that to me is much more of a great example of a lot of targets, and you do have the upside. But like, really surprising to me, you look at the last few months. Mandoro, I think they missed on their last results. I mean, I was pretty disappointed. And where'd the stock price go? It basically stayed around the same level. And I'll just add another point. Like, I've been low on cash. I went big into Mandoro, and I was really worried after that it would drop, but it barely dropped, and I've been able to sell a bunch of my shares. That was actually the easiest one for me to kind of de-risk my Mandoro position. I had a very small profit, but like, at least it was a profit, because I was maybe going to sell it anyway, at a much lower level. But that was really nice. Like, that's the benefit of being into something that's not hyped up and that has multiple opportunities, and it's relatively cheap. Because if they miss, and they really do have other I mean, there's 2 sides of it. If they miss, they have other opportunities. But if it's not hyped up, there just aren't that many people really, selling on the news. Yeah. And so that to me is a good contrast to Northern Shield. I really hope for the best of Northern Shield, but I am skeptical. Like, I think this thing could drop, quite a bit. And it's already very volatile. So it's not so much about dropping or rising, but as many people correctly pointed out, this is volatile. Like, there's a lot of other stocks out there that do not move, will not move close to as much as Northern Shield, just on rumors and what else.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
see a lot of sort of religious sort of comments on
Yeah.
CEO that say, which usually coming from me, I'm religious, so I don't mind saying that because it's usually a positive thing. But I don't mean that in a positive way, the way that I see it, because I went in. So I've been in Northern Chile for not very long at all. This is quite recent to me, but when just I started to read the comments of the people who obviously owned a lot of shares in it and people who were commenting against it, you realize that some people, obviously not all speculators are like this, but it has sort of become that story where the CEO can do no wrong. They're like God's answer to all of our financial problems. And if you dare say anything about the company or the CEO or the people working for it or anything, the project itself, it feels as if you're attacking the people personally. And to me that's a red flag, which I'm surprised I'm still in the stock scene after seeing this, but it was kind of even entertaining because I was reading it and I'm like, do these people realize like what is going on here, like psychologically? Do they know that they're fighting? It's almost like they're fighting about their football teams. Like, no, mine is better than yours, no, yours suck. And when it gets to that stage, I think you have to be a little bit more careful for sure. So that's a great point, Nick.
Again, don't get sucked into the vortex, and it's very important to pay attention to valuations and where you get into these stories, because the ones that are hyped the most and where their market caps balloon, it can end in tears pretty badly.